Anthony arrived with my bottle of pass-through brandy and a large glass of something red and frothing. Lisa is now in my wife's very capable hands. I'll see that she is cleaned and returned to you when she recovers from Egret's culinary experimentation. She had this on her person incidentally, said it was yours. I thought you might need it, so I've made you a Bloody Mary with artificial sylph's blood, should keep you sane and ruin even a were-shark's sobriety, but I can remove your liver as well if you think you need it. I chuckled and waved away his offer. Thank you, but I think my liver is fine just where it is. He nodded, smiled and plonked the Bloody Mary and pass-through brandy on a table beside the armchair. He returned a moment later with a bowl full of pet food. Lucy stared at it. I hope you don't really expect me to eat that? Anthony laughed and ruffled her hair before he pulled up an armchair so he could sit opposite us. No, not yet anyway, but it is the brand my Amy likes, and like you she turns her nose up at it when lucid, only to prefer it to a steak when suitably tame. Lucy mused. It would seem my stomach depends upon my master's ability to bliss me out. I snorted. I raised you from a tiny little thing, have faith. Lucy nodded. So? Said Anthony curiously. Tell me about yourself. Who did my Sammy fall for? I stared at him and took a large gulp of the Bloody Mary. I was lucky. Smart kid in a poor part of town. I was good with numbers, made money doing things I'm not proud of. My parents could see the potential both, good and bad, so they sent me to a good college and university with what little they could save, and I landed the dream job, hedge fund manager. I snorted. Even after the recession I was free to wheel and deal and get proper minted. Then the world ended in fire and death. I'm sorry, said Anthony, quite sincerely. I almost laughed at the madness of it all. Aliens, fucking aliens. I thought it would be depression or drugs or an economic crash. A nuclear war or just a really bad third world war. And of course with climate change and the ever-growing resource scarcity and growing inequality as a kind of ticking clock to the apocalypse, but never ever aliens. He looked me in the eyes. What was it like? A nightmare, I said. I closed my eyes as the images came to the fore of my mind. Great saucers dropping out of the sky and these things emerging like eldritch spiders. They have teeth in their asses, you know. And they fly by vomiting up this bat-like thing in their stomachs. I looked him in the eyes. They were merciless. Any sign of resistance and they ate you alive. Women, children, even pets. They wouldn't even chew the babies, oozed straight into their cavernous mouth/stomach/thing filled with acid. Digested alive. Anthony shook his head. They told me they would stop harvesting worlds like that. Oh, did they? I said irritably. Because everyone who has ever shown me kindness has either died to them, is about to die to them, or gets eaten alive by them for fun. I'm sorry, said Anthony quietly. I shall have to speak to them about this. Speak to them? I said incredulously. I want their great leader dead. I want him screaming for mercy, I want him begging for just one more chance at life, and then I want to show him the mercy his kind has shown everyone I know, including you, I might add. Anthony glared at me. I understand that you are scared and angry, that you have lost a very great deal, but I will make this very clear. I will not help you commit an act of murder and retribution, I will not help you start a war or a revolution. I am a man of peace. I spat. A man of peace capable of possessing someone's mind and making them flay their own skin? Yes, said Anthony with eerie calm. I have bad days, Steve, and you better hope you never meet me on one. I will take you wherever you want to go and allow you to use whatever resources are in my power to give you, here, but I will not go with you to commit murder. I nodded. Fine. I suppose the doctor was right. Pacifism is an entirely amiable position until there's a bunch of genocidal megalomaniacs in your way. Anthony looked at me oddly. You know who? I snorted. Had to do something with my money before the world ended, didn't I? It was either join a cult or find religion or become a nerd. I opted for the one marginally less likely to see me killing someone for their different beliefs. Anthony snorted. Clearly still a noob then. I smirked. We fell silent and I sipped my Bloody Mary as I massaged Lucy. She started purring and I let her off her leash. She crawled over to the cat bowl, rammed her face into the pet food and ate. I watched her eat and felt a pang of nostalgia, for though my little sylph really had grown up, she was still my puppy. I muttered under my breath. My life is so fucked up. I could make things easier for you? Asked Anthony carefully. I'm afraid you're stuck with Lucy and the awkwardness of keeping a grown woman as a pet. Believe me, I know that angst. I had a toy that was someone from a universe I had experienced as fiction. So much angst. Anyway, she's off traveling now, quite happy I believe, but mine never imprinted on me. I chuckled. No, I know. I wouldn't want to get rid of her anyway, I love her. Even if I do wonder what the fuck my life is now. Well, you're a hedge fund manager in a post-scarcity society, said Anthony bluntly. Things aren't going to be the same, but I do have a spare house you can live in for a few weeks. I'll have Egret see Lisa is properly, shall we say, taken care of, each day, and we can meet up for drinks and to walk our sylphs. Maybe when the shock of all this has worn off a bit we can discuss Sammy. I looked at him and I wanted to know so much, so very much, yet I was also tired, so I said, I just want a bed, some crunchy nut, a good curry and Netflix. Is that possible? Anthony grinned. Oh, I think we can manage that. Enjoy your stay here in Choice World, Steve. I nodded and sipped my drink. The house was a short walk away and looked like a cottage. So twee and chocolate boxy, but inside was a large 3-floored house with dedicated bathrooms, shower rooms and toilet rooms. I found a large room with a double bed opposite a large TV. I let Lucy off her leash again and threw myself onto the bed. I woke up drenched in my own drool and sweat. I ached all over. Lucy entered the room dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. I groaned, brain still warming up after the night before. Lucy laughed and said if I were you I would get a shower pretty darn quick. Lisa's waiting downstairs and she nearly tried it on with me. I laughed and ended up having coughing fit. Eventually, wheezing, I said, I think I'll have that shower. Yeah, said Lucy with a smirk. The shower woke me up and I found a suit to slip into. A tad formal, but it was clean and it fit. I headed downstairs and found Lisa lying stretched out on a large sofa in just a short pink skirt and crop top. Lisa grinned when she saw me. You look yummy. I stared at her. Coming from you, that's scary. Lisa chuckled. Egret is a very kind and sensitive devourer. Then she added as an afterthought. Carla would love her. Her face darkened. I took a seat on a stool beside her and said, Lucy says you tried it on with her. Lisa smirked. She's the farsh-nuke's favorite, you know. I can see why. Those slender fingers. I looked at her pointedly. Lisa, she's my puppy, you understand? I don't want you playing games with her. But I'm your toy, said Lisa irritably. Then she seemed to remember something and said, that's why I'm dressed like this actually. Apparently it's my proper default clothing for being a toy. She said it should help me get into the mood, that I should wean myself off being eaten. I stared at her and sighed. A toy, huh? And I thought my life couldn't get any weirder. Lisa frowned then asked, can we fuck? Pardon? I asked. It doesn't have to mean anything, said Lisa awkwardly. And anyway, me and Carla were never exclusive and you and Sammy never. Okay, I'm not having this conversation anymore, I said. I got up to leave. Lisa sighed. The doorbell rang and I went to answer it. There standing in the doorway were Amy and Carla. Amy was dressed in a plaid flannel shirt and jeans with shoulder-length ginger hair, and Carla was wearing a short skirt and a tank top with her blonde hair laid back in a ponytail. Hi, I said uncertainly. Amy laughed. Yeah, versions of us were given to the Contravoxai on Anthony's wedding day, so I apologize if this is eerie. I am Amy Sullivan, Or at least a copy that was made and given to Anthony when he arrived in Choice World as his welcome gift cum tour guide. I'm a sylph, Anthony said. Me and your Lucy should get acquainted so you can go walking us together. This is the original Carla. Carla waved. Hi. Tamed on a one-night stand after his first run-in with the Contravoxai, she's a toy. Anthony hopes she can help your Lisa, explained Amy. Right. I said carefully. Word of warning, Lisa is very horny right now and, Carla, you look exactly like her recently ex-lover. Awesome. Said Carla excitedly. Can we come in? Oh, and by the way she comes with an off switch, said Amy as she pulled out something that looked like a TV remote and pressing a button. Carla frowns. She's perfectly safe like this. Her conscious mind just isn't on, said Amy cheerfully before turning Carla back on. Carla blinked, looked to Amy then grinned at me. Right. I said and stood aside to let the women in. Carla strode past and headed into the living room to meet with Lisa. Amy stayed with me. Look, obviously I'm a pet, and so kind of in a subservient position here, but while I am lucid I am probably one of the most knowledgeable people about Choice World that you are going to meet. So this is a memory gun and this is a quantum oscillator. The one will explain how to use the other. The Contravoxai are vile, so if you want to take them down, this will help. Thank you, I said seriously. No problem, said Amy cheerfully. Just make sure you have plenty of kibble and after, let's say 3 hours, come and bliss me and Lucy out so we can enjoy it. Amy looked to be about to go, then she added, oh, and don't freak out if you see me and Lucy rutting when we're blissed out. We're sylphs, even if we're not lucid we're still us. It's only a problem if someone who is lucid gets involved. Then she disappeared upstairs. I shook my head and went to find a computer. It looked and functioned reassuringly similar to computers from my world, even though it was noticeably faster and more powerful. I researched the memory gun to feel certain it wouldn't actually kill me, then I pointed the barrel between my eyes and pulled the trigger. I now knew almost everything about the quantum oscillator, and indeed I even knew what I did not know, and that the reason I did not know it was because such knowledge would be too dangerous. I practiced doing cheap tricks with my quantum oscillator and had soon created a kind of pokeball to keep Lisa in. It was a modified infinite bag with a tennis ball-sized hardened spherical exterior that could absorb things into it at the push of a button and beam them out at the push of a different button. I had designed the inside to be like the inside of the house and added a hamster-esque exercise wheel just to see if I could. Then I got bored and noticed that had all 56 seasons of Doctor Who on Netflix, so I started binge-watching my favorite doctors. 3 hours later I went to my bedroom and found Amy and Lucy chatting over mugs of tea. Amy smiled at me when I entered. Lucy noticed me a moment later and said, Amy tells me you now own a quantum oscillator. I nodded. A very interesting device, but if you don't mind I have some Doctor Who to binge watch. Don't forget to drink your sylph blood, said Lucy gently. I looked at her curiously and wondered if this was code for, please slit my neck before this woman. Amy removed the need for an answer to the conundrum by saying, oh, I almost forgot, there should be a soft drink dispenser in one of the kitchens that's been programmed to pump out artificial sylph blood. I nodded. Thanks, I'll have to have a look into that. Then I approached Amy and gave her a preliminary neck massage so I could whisper, still sure about this? Lucy was giving me a dirty look, clearly annoyed that I was clit blocking her. Is there anything you particularly need, Stephen? Amy grinned and whispered, yes, do it. I'm ready. I circled round to Lucy and whispered, trust me, you'll get what you want. Lucy blissed out in just a few minutes. Amy watched the whole thing with voyeuristic fascination, and Lucy was certainly aware of this but seemed okay with it. Amy herself took a little longer to bliss out owing to my lack of experience with her, but it didn't take too long, so I left the blissed out puppies to get better acquainted while I rooted out the artificial sylph blood. I decided to binge watch Doctor Who somewhere else to give them privacy. 6 hours later there came a ring on the doorbell and I answered it. A short powerful-looking woman with flame-red hair was holding a large bag between her clasped hands. "Ah, Stephen, we meet at last," she said cheerfully. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Egret, and you are very welcome to join my household in any subservient capacity you may wish. I could use a new foot's tool." I swallowed nervously. Egret held up the carrier bag. "1 chicken tikka masala with pillau rice, sagaloo, naan bread, chips and a large box of Kellogg's Crunchy Nut. As you wanted." "Thank you," I said with a large appreciative grin as I took the bag. "But you aren't just here to deliver my curry, are you?" Egret shook her head and chuckled. "I am here for my toy and my takeaway." I looked blankly at her until I realized what she meant. "So you really eat her?" Egret shrugged. "I'm a Charikthi, darling, and humans are such beastly creatures when it comes to my kind. Kind of nice to have them on the menu for a change, and she is so very sweet about it. You know, she even insists I take her internal organs after she's recovered, on the understanding that she'll swiftly replace them. Of course, Anthony thinks the entire thing is simply ghastly, but he never got the hang of the idea that consent makes something okay." I nodded and headed into the downstairs living room to find Lisa and Carla naked in a position that I would never even have thought possible before. I blinked and said, "You may need to wash her before you eat her." Egret nodded, then said loudly, "Girls, I need you." The activity continued for a moment more, then they sheepishly stood before Egret. "Shower, now," ordered Egret, and they hurried off. Then Egret turned to me and said, "Don't worry about them, I know my way around GIRLS, you just enjoy your curry, dear, and remember my door is always open to a submissive youngster." I nodded, then decided to eat my curry before Doctor Who. I slept in a bed that night and had sleep that was strangely untroubled. My world had collapsed overnight in alien madness, but my nightmares of very real events blurred with memories of binge-watching Doctor Who such that I didn't feel afraid. There was screaming, there was suffering, but through it all was hope, hope represented by a strange man in an odd suit saying, "No more." I woke to find Amy and Lucy either side of me, both thankfully fully dressed. Lucy said, "Amy explained about yesterday, so I just wanted to say thank you. I was right to trust you." "Right," I said. "I was thinking that Lucy could join me over at Anthony's. I mean, I can't stay away long, he'll miss me, but I like her," said Amy awkwardly. Lucy blushed and asked, "You won't be lonely, will you? You have been through a lot." "Go," I said with a smirk. "I have TV and I have food. Be happy." And that's how the week passed. The Sylphs blissed out at mine and Anthony's on alternate days, and Lisa explored the full value of the original Carla before Egret explored the various ways in which to enjoy Lisa's flesh, and I binge-watched TV series on Netflix and ate curries every day. I mean, I'm a were-shark, I can heal fully from a single beating heart, and I have 3 of them. Fat does not scare me anymore, and it's a post-scarcity society where money and regulated capitalism exists as a kind of risk-free incentive system to encourage people to follow their dreams and let a stable popular culture develop. If I wanted this to be my life until the end of time, I could. Do you maybe see the flaw in the logic there? The fly in the proverbial oyster? I was a smart kid from a rough part of town, and I lost good friends even before the aliens came. It's how I remained so relatively calm. Then I got eaten alive, fell hopelessly in love, and became a vampire to stave off the insanity of being a were-shark. I became good friends with people who like to be eaten for kicks and aliens who liked to eat people. Oh, and I now had a pet woman, and my savior's wife looked at me like I was a slab of meat just waiting to be devoured. How the fuck do you return to normality after that? I didn't even have a job anymore, didn't have a government to hate, bigots to complain about, or poor people to distance myself from. I mean, Choice World wasn't perfect, what with the vampires and wandering elder gods and logicios vanishing people, but they all were only allowed to operate because their victims utterly consented. There were problems that in some sense made the problems of my world seem small. The great unending septagonoid war for the safety of the multiverse. The Bamkirch's imperial conquest of universes into joining the united civilizations of the multiverse, the apparently civilized attempt at protecting the multiverse without recourse to the elder gods or their followers. The bigotry and sadism of the logicios, the great farsh-nuke's massive army of superpowered super-nerds who did by and large actually keep the multiverse safe but were all in all complete dicks about it. Except that in my world the anger and fear was impotent and you could do nothing about it, so instead it reminded you that life was worth living because it was all so fleeting and horrible for so many that you enjoyed what small wonders you could and were thankful. Here I lived without fear, I was utterly protected, utterly free to live my life however I wished, and if I got angry about the state of the multiverse I could become a logicio or an architect of chaos, even sign up to be a host for a dislocated elder god who would know how to fight, or I could just find a segat or buy one or find someone who was willing to let me turn them into one and then go off having adventures by myself without training or backup. I could even slowly build myself a multiverse traveling ship that wasn't powered by a self-enlightened to the point of transcending into being logic and energy. I had no strings to hold me down, no chains to bind me, I could leave the platonic cave and I had absolutely no fucking clue what to do with that infinite potential before me. Except for the knowledge that as a former hedge fund manager I was going to make damn certain I did not waste the potential presented to me. I discussed this with Anthony when we went walking our sylphs together. Lucy and Amy were clearly quite close by now, as even blissed out, walking as pups on all fours at the end of our leashes, they stuck close by each other, and indeed I did accidentally find myself observing some quite canine rutting once or twice. Anthony suggested I consider joining a vampire guild or finding a suitable person to imprint on and be a pet sylph to. He said that clearly my burdens were how I preferred to be directed in life, and that my wereshark bloodlust and its mastery was one burden that both genuinely needed addressing and might be taken advantage of to provide direction. Well, after the sack of my world I was not about to become some monstrous vampire. Besides, it was too easy, as I had in my possession a woman who regarded herself as my pet and happily let me drink from her, and a woman who regarded herself as my toy and was driven to near sexual levels of excitement and joy by the thought and practice of being eaten alive. If you're going to pick a goal to strive for, pick Everest over a quiet drink at the pub. So I approached Egret when she was waiting for Carla and Lisa to finish showering so she could take them with her to Chicago. "You have quite the way with women?" I said by way of an opener. Egret smiled. "Not women, just the young humans. In the ocean you have to be tough to survive, you have to be a little cold and ruthless inside. You humans are too pampered, you want and expect a guiding hand, even if that hand is guiding you into a toy box or a stew." I had to laugh at that. "Yes, well, I think we have better survivability rates." "That's because your opposable thumbs make you better at killing," said Egret bluntly. I snorted and fell silent. "How the fuck do you ask to be someone's pet? Excuse me, Mrs. Terrifying, you seem like a very dominating personality. Care to walk me on a leash and feed me some pedigree, chum?" I coughed, trying to encourage myself to speak, but the words wouldn't come. What words could come? "Well, you make Lisa very happy," I managed at last. "Thank you," said Egret graciously. "Tonight we're having a stew with mashed potatoes. You're welcome to join us, as either guest or entree." "Yes," I said with enthusiasm, which caused Egret to look at me curiously and me to add hurriedly, "Being a guest would be just fine." Egret grinned. "So you will come into my parlor? Interesting." At that moment Lisa and Carla exited and Egret handed them a bag each of clothes to put on. "Stephen will be joining us," said Egret. "I trust that won't be a problem, Lisa?" Lisa smirked. "Never." "Good," said Egret. Carla studied me with obvious glee before dressing. "I have a feeling Lisa's not the only one for the pot tonight." I swallowed. Lisa chuckled and pulled on her clothes. Egret patted the small of my back and said, "He'll live, don't worry." Then we walked over to her house and Carla laid the table as Egret led Lisa into the kitchen. I found Anthony reading something called the Farscape Collective as the blissed out forms of Lucy and Amy rutted quietly on a sylph bed in a corner of the room. He was drinking some brown liquid from a glass and seemed deep into his reading. I also noticed 3 statues standing in an alcove. I had skipped over them before because I normally don't give two shits about interior design, but seeing them in the same room as Amy and Lucy made me realize. One of the blonde women on the plinth was the spit of Lucy and the ginger on the opposite side was the spit of Amy. Interesting statues, I said. Yes, said Anthony without looking up from his book. The original Amy and Lucy and, in the center, my first toy, Candy. Why? I asked. Because Candy likes it and the others are safer that way, said Anthony dismissively. Lisa and Carla are allowed to be played with because I can trust them to be obedient. As for the Amy blissed out on the floor, well, she lacks an off switch. What happened? I asked. That is not a question to be answered today, said Anthony with a peculiar air of finality. Now, enjoy your food. I turned as the smell reached my nose and exclaimed, "That smells amazing." "Thank you," said Lisa sweetly as Egret brought a vast pot of stew into the room on a trolley. Lisa's head and shoulders stuck out from the pot and she looked utterly ecstatic. "Hush," said Egret tersely. "No talking at the dinner table." Egret pulled a rather large fork and knife from the trolley and stabbed into Lisa's flesh below the waterline. A moment later a gobbet of meat rose out of the stew at the end of the fork. Egret nibbled at it, then reached it across the table so Carla could sample it. "Think she's ready?" Carla nodded and licked her lips as she swallowed the gobbet. Egret disappeared back into the kitchen and I approached Lisa, being careful not to get hurt by the steam coming off the stew. "Hey, are you okay?" Lisa nodded then whispered, "I'm only sorry I can't sample me." Egret ate her Ned with 3 plates filled with mashed potato. The potato had been sculpted so there was a hollow for the stewed meat and veg to sit in. Egret glared at me and said, "Unless you want to join her, keep away from the meat." I hurriedly backed off and watched in horrified fascination as Egret carved meat from Lisa and placed it on our plates. Finally Egret reached a gloved hand into the stew, pulled out a still pulsing organ and proceeded to grate it as a garnish over our plates before tossing it back in the stew. I stared at my plate of food and tentatively selected a gobbet of stewed meat, saw that it was thoroughly covered with mashed potato and ate it. It tasted fantastic and I must not have been able to hide the surprised smile on my face because Lisa looked at me meaningfully and smiled. It is a matter of some personal shame as far as I am concerned that I cleaned my plate. Then Egret leaned over to me and whispered in my ear, "We both know you didn't come here to eat your friend." "No," I said awkwardly, "that's quite true." "I understand that it must be difficult for you to admit," said Egret gently. "So I won't make you. Merely say no or stop if what I do displeases you." And that's when she started massaging my back. "Carla," commanded Egret loudly, "do be a dear and roll the trolley into the pantry. I'll finish with Lisa later. Then climb into the toy box, there's a good girl." Carla set about her task swiftly and I watched as Lisa left the room. She saw Egret's hands working on my neck and she had to keep herself from laughing. I let Egret work, gave myself fully under her command and her instruction was as simple as it was perverse: give in to the impulses, let the beast free.